I will post this so that if you guys miss something, you can go back and look at it. I'm not going to do this every single day. If you're going to be gone for like an excused absence, like a sports thing or something, let me know and I'll try to remember to do that, just so it's easier than you having to get notes from somebody else. Okay? So I'll get to this in a second, but there's a link on Pearson to, I hate saying that, YouTube channel. My kids will be like, oh, Mom, you're a YouTuber. Look, you're posting a YouTube video. I'm like, no, I'm not. Thank you. So I'll show you the link to that in a second. That'll be where I post any class notes that I happen to record. And sometimes the easiest way, if you have a question like on a particular homework problem, is to just send me. And ideally in Pearson, you do this by taking a screenshot. You don't just say like question number such and such, because it is adaptive. So it's gonna give, you guys are gonna have different questions. And then sometimes if you get it wrong, it's gonna give you another one that's similar. So the easiest way if you have a homework question is take a screenshot, email it to me, and then what I generally think the best way to do is that I will, if it's a straightforward thing, I'll tell you just through the email. If it's something a little more complicated, I'll work the problem and do like a screen capture on my iPad as I'm working it, and then I'll just post it to YouTube and email you the link back. So if you're struggling, you can always go check the YouTube and see if somebody's asked that question already or a similar one, okay? We already talked about accessing your Pearson subscription. If anyone is still struggling with that, I'll make sure to leave 5 or 10 minutes at the end of class so that if there's any technology issues, we can work through that. Often it's stuff like this with like, it's blocking a pop-up or something like that, okay? But if you're not even able to, so if you came in just a smidge late or later, close all this other stuff. I'm a gardener. I have dreams of not being a chemistry teacher anymore. I don't dislike it. I just want to be a gardener. All right. So if you were a little bit late, go to Blackboard, select our class, hit Pearson course materials. It should redirect you to Pearson. You set up an account. It'll send you directly to my course, and then you should see something similar to this. It's a little bit different on the student view. Okay, so that's the accessing stuff. And then I guess we can go ahead and flip over to Pearson now. So we're going to go through like pertinent information that's in there, the YouTube link, the exam schedules, and the announcements. Follow along with me as we're doing this if you can. I'm going to show you the calendar in there just so you don't get confused about when stuff's due. And then we will go through the actual assignments, and we will skip to the syllabus right now just for a second, and I'll come back to this. So as you're looking through due dates, as we're looking through that in Pearson, here's the breakdown of how the course is going to go. So just showing up and participating, and what I mean by participating is like minimize side conversations. For the love, take out some earbuds so that I know you're not just listening to whatever. Show up, and my biggest thing is that I love when people work with their neighbors on a practice problem. So we will try to save as much time as possible for practice problems in class. So I'll say, okay, you guys, take 3 minutes, try it by yourself. So lots of times if people are lost, they'll just sit there and waste that time. So ideally, you turn to your neighbor and you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And either they know or they don't know, and you can talk through it a little bit together, okay? And then we'll come back and rework the problem up here together. Okay, so that's attendance and participation. There's gonna be very brief, how brief? I don't know. I would say none of them should take you more than, this is for each chapter, so it's not before every class, it's before we start a new chapter. And those should take you maybe an hour, and chapters are gonna be like, last maybe a week or a week and a half. So pre-class assignments is gonna be reading through the textbook, watching any pre-class videos that I have linked in there, and you answer a question that's related to that. So the videos in the textbook are super useful. Sometimes they do cover material that was already covered in the text as well. I love a good textbook, but I also realize that I'm not that old, just to be clear. But I am of a different generation when we actually had textbooks and that was it. Like, people did not just make videos for teaching you everything you needed to know in freshman chemistry. Exactly. So the videos are good in there. I would also recommend going more in depth in the textbook, particularly the example problems. So watching the videos, maybe skimming through the material when you're doing these pre-class assignments, answering the questions that you're going to be required to answer, and then if you're still struggling a little bit, look through some of the practice problems or do that after class, okay? But ideally, you're coming to class with having a fairly basic understanding of what we're going to talk about so that we can spend more of our time in class doing practice problems. I hate lecturing, especially because I teach this class 3 times, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the exact same class 3 times. It's exhausting. So I don't want to talk the whole time. It's also not particularly productive because you guys are going to zone out pretty quickly, okay? So the more we can focus in on doing practice problems, the better. And the way that's going to happen is if you come to class having a basic understanding. If you have no idea what we're even going to talk about that day, either you're going to be lost or all of you are going to be lost and tell me you are, and then we're going to have to end up doing lecture, okay? So that's the pre-class stuff. So that's 10% of your grade as well. So there are actual assignments in Pearson. I'll show you that in a bit. Homework, 20%. These again are for each chapter. They're due at the end of the chapter, but they're going to take you a decent amount of time. I don't know, a couple hours to do the whole chapter. So that's not that much when you're talking about an hour of prep for that chapter, a few hours of homework for that chapter. But if you save it all till the end of a chapter, now you're talking about doing a few hours of homework, studying for an exam, and reading for the next chapter. You're not gonna be able to do that in like 2 nights. So ideally with the homework, you start it out as soon as we do, so on Wednesday we'll start chapter 1. So you should go home on Wednesday and start working on the homework and do as much as you can. So like I said, they're adaptive. It doesn't matter if you get a question wrong, as long as you keep working on it and eventually get that topic right. Like there is no reason why you can't get to 100% on every assignment. So getting a question wrong is not gonna penalize your grade as long as you keep going and complete the assignment. Does that make sense? So feel free to start it early and do as much as you can. And I would plan to just spend a little bit of time, at least, you know, if we have class on Monday, spend some time either Monday or Tuesday doing as much as you can on the homework. Okay, so that's 25%. The exams right now, what I'm planning is that it's pretty much 2 chapters. I think there's one that's a single chapter because it's just really heavy. It's also really important. But we're gonna do what I'm calling a mini exam. When is it? 1, 2, 3. Labor Day is next Monday. Don't come to class. So we have Wednesday. I think it's next Friday. So we're gonna have like 3 days of lecture material and then have a mini exam. That's gonna be the one that's only worth 5%. The intention is that you get a feel for how I give exams, and it's not a huge deal if you don't do well. It also gives you a good indicator of, am I studying enough? So if you do poorly on the exam, you're like, I really need to actually read the textbook before I come to class, or do the homework sooner, or whatever the case is. We can talk about that when the time comes. And then there'll be 4 other exams, 10% each, and then the final is 15%. It is cumulative in this class. I don't generally do that in Chem 2 because by the end of that, what you take with you is kind of dependent on your major. In Chem 1, you need to carry all of this on so that if you're going on to Chem 2, then there's no issues of, you know, what topics did you forget. Okay? So knowing that, let's go to Pearson and go through the actual assignments. So there's no, other than checking in every time you come into class and then, you know, being not noticeably unparticipatory, if that's a word, then those 10% are pretty much free. The others all have an assignment, the middle 2 in Pearson, and those ones in class, okay? So let's go show you those. Oh, that's what I wanted. Here we go. Okay, so like I said, I don't know how your assignments look exactly. You can either have them in a list form. Now, the only ones that you'll see are if I have due dates listed already. So you should see chapters 1 through 3 homework assignments. You should also see chapters 1 through 3 pre-class assignments, okay? I have these due at 8 a.m. the day of class because I want you to do them the night before, but I don't want to have you, like if you study at night and you're working at 1 or 2 in the morning, that's your call. So the intent is that you do it the night before class. And again, this is just before we start a new chapter, not every class day. So this one's due on Wednesday because we will start chapter 1 on Wednesday. Okay? So you can get to the assignments that way. You can also use the calendar. Can you guys tell me if yours doesn't look like this? Can you see a calendar form and a list form? Okay, good. All right, so you can also use the calendar to keep track of this. This doesn't have exams listed. This is just the pre-class assignments and the homework assignments. So you'll see on, I can't zoom on that apparently, you'll see on the 28th, this is Wednesday, that's when you're gonna have your chapter 1 reading due. Those are all in purple, it's very nice and color-coded. And then this is when your chapter 1 homework will be due. That's because, I guess I did have that due that night. So we have class on Wednesday, and then that night, that homework assignment is due. And I just realized that that's set to 11:59, so I'll probably bump that to 8 a.m. on Thursday as well, just in case you work late. But I don't want you leaving it till the night before the exam, right? So we're gonna finish new material, and then we're gonna have an exam on Friday. So I want you to do the homework here so that you have time to like see what you need to practice on Thursday, not doing the homework. Like the homework alone is not studying for an exam, okay? All right, so next one, you can see all the other stuff coming up. I put chapters 1 through 3 in there. I wish there was an easier way for me to put exams, but you can't see chapter 2. Can anybody see chapter 2? Not the reading, but the homework? Maybe I didn't set a due date for it. Oh, I did, September 9th. Oh, I forgot. It does this thing where I'm too lazy to go in and change it when I set up the assignment, but if you look here, it shows you when it's available. So for some reason, it's not gonna show you that it's available until September 2nd. I don't know why. It's stupid, but it's like a week in advance, so I could maybe not be lazy and go in and change that. It all has them set automatically to show until the end of the semester. I don't know why I can't have it do that automatically at the beginning of the semester. I'll change that though, just so that people don't feel confused by it, okay? Like I said, most chapters are gonna take, I would say, about 4 days. So I try to do 3 to 4 days on a chapter, generally 2 chapters per exam, and then we'll have a review day before the exam day. Not for chapter 1 because it's fairly straightforward and it's also like a mini exam. Let me just see if we'll get to the exam thing and the exam schedule in a second. Calendar, homework assignments. There are additional, okay, so like I said, there are practice problems in the textbook. And if you're struggling with homework, that's probably the first place I would send you. There are additional tutorial videos, not just the ones in the textbook that are embedded in the text, but that are through Pearson. I'll show you where those are. I haven't had people use those a whole ton. I'm not sure if they're just not great, but that's another resource. I also really like Khan Academy. I would not just Google anything on YouTube because you don't know if they're doing it at the level that we are. So for example, when we start drawing Lewis structures, which is like, you've probably seen them, I don't know where my pen is. You've probably seen this before, but it's like, carbon in the middle with the lines out and then another symbol for the other elements. There will be YouTube videos that say, oh, you have to obey the octet rule. Well, we break the octet rule all the time. And if you're in like high school chemistry, they might not tell you that. And so the rules might be a little bit different. So this is why I wouldn't just Google whatever. So if you go on Khan Academy, the one that's like AP chemistry or freshman chemistry, those are gonna be pretty on par with what we're doing, okay? All right, so back to Pearson. On the course home, you should have the announcements listed. I'm not actually gonna announce anything there. I'm just gonna put important info to refer back to. So the YouTube link is there, and then the exam schedule is here. So if for some reason we have to shift the exams, I will change it in here. I'll tell you in class. I'll probably send an email too. Please check your RMU email regularly. So I have 3 kids, and my husband has a demanding job. Not that that isn't demanding. I'm part-time, in case anybody didn't know that. It doesn't feel like it when I'm teaching 3 classes, but I'm not up here on Tuesday and Thursday, and if kids are homesick, I usually get the first day of staying home with them. So if for some reason we have to go virtual because of something like that, I will send an email out early in the morning by 8 a.m., let's say. So you'll know 2 hours in advance if you're checking your email, okay? So just make it a habit. It's a good adult habit to have, you know, get your coffee, check your email, see if there's any updates, okay? That was not about exams, but it was important. So if there's an exam change, I'll also email that. These are in class, so they're 50 minutes because they're in class. I used to only give 3. I stretched it out. I also dropped a chapter since last year. So I dropped a chapter and I gave more exams so that there's less material on them. They just were too long. They're going to be multiple choice. I'm sure I'll have something else to tell you about that in a minute. Okay, so that's the exam schedule. The other important thing is under document sharing. Again, I don't think yours looks exactly like this, but you should have 3 things listed at least. So the syllabus is what's in the notes right now, but it's just a better form, and it has all of the details, like all of the university policies and everything. If you're a freshman, this is a very normal document that every course in college is required to give you. So it lays out all of the grading schemes and policies and everything, so that if there's a question, like for example, one of the biggest, most important ones is if you are sick on an exam day, you cannot just email me and be like, I don't feel good, I'm not going to make the exam. You have to have a doctor's note, okay? That is the one time where if it is a 0, if you don't have a sports absence, a doctor's note, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's valid. That's pretty much it, okay? So don't show up, you know, begging me for retake just because you weren't ready and decided that your tummy didn't feel good, okay? All right, the exam information sheet will become very pertinent. I guess I'll just, I don't have it on there. I'm gonna have to download it to show it to you. Okay, so this is gonna be what you'll have on every single exam, which means this is the stuff you don't have to memorize, okay? So either printing out a copy or throwing it on your desktop so that you can have that file readily available is going to be really useful, because all the time people will be like doing the homework and be like, oh my gosh, do I have to memorize the speed of light constant? Well, look at your exam information sheet and you'll see that it's on there. And so no, you don't have to memorize it. I also put a lot of useful, obviously, equations, but like even some of this is maybe not typical of what most instructors would do. I put the definitions of things in terms of their units. I'm looking at this and I'm like, we're only going to use like the top one and not for a couple weeks. But units are a huge deal in how to solve chemistry problems. People will think like, where's the equation? What's the equation I'm supposed to plug into? The vast majority of calculations in this class is not going to be an equation. It is going to be, I have this quantity, how do I get from that to the answer I'm looking for that's in a different unit? And there are steps you can use to plan your calculation, but the vast majority of the time, it is not going to be an equation you can plug into. Having said that, especially as you get into second semester, so this is what I use for first and second semester, there will be a lot more equations in second semester, so that's why I have this here. Okay, so refer back to that. You're gonna, in like chapter 3, you're gonna have to memorize the names of the polyatomic ions, but I think it's really cumbersome to have to memorize their exact formulas, and if you get the charge slightly wrong, you're gonna get the answer wrong. So I give you the formulas, you just have to know, if I say hydroxide, you'll have to know it's this one, but you have kind of a cheat so that you don't have to memorize if it's a -1 or a -2, okay? Electronegativities we'll get to soon, shapes, periodic table. Probably the easiest thing is to just use this periodic table when we're in class doing stuff, because then we'll all get the same numbers. If you look at others, like oxygen 16.00 here, sometimes it's 15.998, okay? They're the same numbers, it's just a different level of precision. All right, so that's that file. And then the last thing is the chapter 1 notes, okay? I will try to post the notes that I wrote on at the end of the chapter. The reason I'm hesitating is because I very often do not leave myself enough room in the notes, and so I will like write something and then I'll erase it and write something else. So this is not adequate for like you to think, oh, I'm just gonna have a copy of her notes, it'll be fine. But it's better than nothing if you missed class. But I won't post it until the end of the chapter anyways. But I am gonna try to, I have this one labeled as section A, so that's you guys, so that I don't have them different for each class and erase and rewrite, and it's just crazy. Okay, what questions do you guys have so far? And speak loud because this air conditioner is really loud. How many of your freshmen, like first experience in college? Holy moly! Okay, here we go. College is a lot harder than high school in most instances. I actually taught at a girls' prep school in Philadelphia for a few years, and I mean, this was unreal. It was like $30,000 a year to go to high school. And do you guys know M. Night Shyamalan? That's my one claim to fame. Oh my gosh, you're so young, you probably don't know this, but like I See Dead People? No? Oh man. I think he's put out something recently, but he makes movies. Anyway, his kids went to our school, it was ridiculous. Those kids would come back from college and be like, oh my goodness, college is so easy because we just like tortured them in high school. All of the science faculty had PhDs and we just held them to a very high standard. So they would come back from college and say it was easy. I would say that's not the vast majority of people's experience. Generally, there's a huge bump up from high school to college in the expectations. So being a grown-up and taking care of anything you can take care of on your own is the first step. So, for example, I remember having someone that said, I can't do the homework because I haven't learned logs yet, like a logarithm, like math. And I was okay, first, you learned that. Pretty sure you learned that in 10th grade. Second, don't email me and tell me that. I'm not going to teach you how to do a log. First of all, go on YouTube and figure out how to do a log. Then if you still don't understand, maybe you can come and ask me about that. But I am not your first resource for stuff like that. Be assertive, take it on yourself to do absolutely everything you can on your own. And I mean, this is very like a parent thing. Like, okay, so my kids, I talk about them all the time, I feel like. But my kids are 11, and then I have twin boys that are 8. My 11-year-old's a girl. So my twin boys that are 8. And then I will say things like, I don't know, like, you can do that yourself. Like, you can put that in the microwave and warm it up yourself. Like, you don't need me to do that. Or like, I can sort your laundry and then you can put it away. Like, you are capable of knowing where your underwear go. So if you can do it yourself, do it yourself. I'm gonna be pretty pissed if you email me and ask me something that you can do. Those are lazy questions. Everybody always says they're not stupid questions. There's not stupid questions. There's very much as lazy questions though, and I don't want those. Okay. On that note of expectations, especially going from high school to college, how to succeed. So I talked about this a little bit, so you really need to study beforehand. You cannot come in with a completely blank slate having no idea what we're doing. So you're gonna have these assignments. I didn't even highlight what those look like. Let's just open up the first one so you guys know what they look like. That's not what I wanted, here we go. Okay, chapter 1 reading. Oh, look, 2 of you have already done it. Of course, only 60 people have actually gone into the course, and that's half of my students, so I need a little on that. Okay, these are pretty straightforward. There's a video, and then there's a question. Oh, look, you even have the answer for that one. It changes, don't worry. There's a video, there's a related question. A lot of the times, sometimes it's actually straight out of the video. Usually it's like a very similar question that they did one in the video and now you have to do one on your own, okay? That is all I'm gonna have these. It is basically a motivation for you to get into the chapter and look at the material. That is why you're doing these. It's like my way of forcing you to, okay? So that's what the reading will look like. So you do the prep before class, you know the basics, you come in here and we maybe briefly go over some of the basics, and then we get into the more difficult material. So sometimes I'm thinking, what do I have in here? I guess I deleted that because it was so basic. Trying to give you an example. Whatever. I used to have one in here that was like the differences between, it was a little less detailed than this, but like you should be able to do the reading and come in and know that like in a solid, the particles are really close together, and in a gas, they're really far apart. Okay, I should not have to tell you that. So I might have the picture up there, but I'm not going to reiterate it. I'm going to assume you got that out of the textbook. Okay? All right, so we come to class, we do the difficult topics, and like I said, ideally we're spending time in here working practice problems. It is going to be easier in the first chapter. I don't know, actually. For you guys, maybe that's not true. I most recently taught Chem 2, and in that one, it does kind of start up really slow. Maybe this one will be a little faster paced, especially because we're only doing it for 3 days. Okay, so we'll do practice problems as much as possible. Then you go do the homework to like solidify your understanding. One of the biggest things I've seen with these adaptive homeworks, I really like them because it doesn't, it's not a high stakes kind of thing. You can get 100% as long as you start early, ask questions, you can get 100% on them. The issue with that is that if you do a problem wrong like 4 times and then you finally get it, that tells me that maybe you don't understand that material super well. So that's one issue, is that just because you finish the homework does not necessarily mean you're completely ready for the exam. So the way that I try to prepare you guys for the exam is at the end of the notes, there is a ton. You can see there's like a ton. All of those are practice problems, okay? So this is basically, the questions are intended to be similar to what an exam question is, although the exam questions are multiple choice and these are not. And we're not gonna work all of them. On the review day, I will look through and hit the things I think we're struggling with, but you can use these to see, do I actually understand this? So let's say that you're doing the homework and it takes you like 4 tries to get a significant figures problem correct. Well, then you should probably go to the practice problems and find significant figures and complete those. I'll post a key to this after the review day, like at the end of the day, so that you can go check your answers or use it to study. But don't just assume I did the homework, I'm good. Okay? And then time commitment. So I actually, when I was in school, heard 3 hours for every hour in class. My kids are like, that's so unfair. How come they only have to go to class for blah, blah, blah hours every day? So the intent is that you're studying on your own. For every hour in class, you're studying 2 hours out of class. So we meet 3 days a week. That translates into 12 hours. No, wait, that's not right. 6 hours. 6 hours of additional time out of class. Obviously, it's going to be less for some of you and more for others, depending on your level of background. If you took a chemistry class or like an AP class, if you took AP Chem, you're probably going to breeze through this really quickly if you did well. But that could look something like you do some prep study reading, you do some of the homework, in between each class. So you come to class on Monday, you do an hour of reading, studying, whatever, and an hour of homework. That seems like a lot, even as I'm saying it. Maybe it's more like 30 or 45 minutes every other, and then you're using a lot more time when you're studying for an exam. It's all gonna balance out, but just expectations, 6 hours out of class, 3 hours in class every week. I don't really wanna read through these. These are like things that I've noticed over the years that help, and I've said a lot of them before. Okay, what else do I have in here? So the rest is the syllabus. I need a break for a second. Any other questions? Think of them. I'll give you a minute. See what I mean? Can you imagine saying this all 3 times during the day? Yeah. Paper homework? No. Everything's on Pearson. So yeah, the 2 Pearson types of assignments and then exams. Okay, I don't know why that made me think of it. Calculators. If you bring a graphing calculator for an exam, I will clear the memory beforehand. So if you don't want me to do that, then get a basic scientific calculator, like $7 at Walmart or something. But use whatever. I will use my phone because I don't have to take the tests. I will use my phone because it's handy and I don't want to carry around something else. Don't use your phone to do calculations though, because you're not going to use your phone on the exam. So use whatever calculator you're using. There are weird things about like how you input an exponent, like 6 times 10 to the 23rd. If you do that times 10 to the 23rd versus the capital E button, 23, that's gonna your calculator is going to interpret that differently. So you need to use whatever calculator that you're going to use on the exam as you're doing in-class problems, homework, all of that. Okay, you can read description, objectives. I'm not going to read that. I didn't even say my name. I think you guys probably got that from your registration. It's Christiansen. If you say Christensen, I'm not going to be offended, but that is how you pronounce it. I'm doctor. I'm not technically a professor because that's like if you're tenured and certainly not part-time. Also, I'm not going to tell you that again, but generally, if you're part-time faculty, you're not professor, and if you're full-time, you may or may not be. You can call me doctor, though, because I do have a PhD. Okay, you already know where you're at because you're here. Don't have to go over anything. Oh, maybe, not to freak you out. If you decide this is not a good fit for your schedule or your life or you hate me, good luck because next fall, if you're here, it'll probably be it. So the drop deadline is, the 31st is the end of this week, I think. So we won't have any new students after that, and if you want to leave, you can leave by then. The withdrawal, this is a good one to talk about since a lot of you are freshmen. So if you are failing the class and you do not want to have an F on your transcript, you can take a W. It will show on your transcripts. So you withdraw from the course before November 1st, and then on your transcripts there will be a W instead of an F. When you're thinking about how does that affect me long term, if you're applying for graduate school or medical school or dental school, they probably will see both grades. So like let's say you retake the class next fall and you get a B, they will probably see F and a B. I don't know about withdrawals if RMU is required to put that on your transcript. It's possible that if you take it again, it'll just substitute in, but if you're gonna do that, I would ask, because it may say W and B, okay? But you can explain away a withdrawal a lot easier. Like, oh, I got really sick that semester, I got COVID, right? Well, I'll use that as an example for the next 10 years. I got COVID and I had to withdraw because it was just too much, I couldn't catch up. It's pretty hard to explain away an F, okay? Or a D for that matter sometimes. So that's an important date to keep in mind. We already talked about Pearson. That's the only thing you need to have, purchase, whatever for the class. We talked about grades. If you're wondering what the grade distribution is, I had a student just the other semester that came back to me and was like, I thought a B plus was an 86. That's what I thought the university standard was. And I was like, well, first of all, there's not a university standard. And second, it was in the syllabus that I showed you on the very first day. So these are the grade breakdowns. I actually think they're really generous because when you get down lower, we put a C at 70% and not a C minus. Like normally a C minus would be the 70 to 72 or something, and a C would be 73 and up. So we get rid of everything else after that. There's no D pluses or anything either. Okay, so those are the grade breakdowns. And then this is basically advice and kind of how-tos. So if you have a question about like, what am I supposed to do about this? Just come to the second page first. Usually it's best to email me first if there's something. We can try to work it out through that, or if we need to meet, that's fine. We can do Google Meets because like I said, I'm not on campus Tuesdays and Thursdays. I also don't stay particularly late. Usually I'm out of here by like 2:30 or 3 o'clock. So I talked to you about making tutorial videos. You can obviously email questions. Please do take a screenshot though of the question. Don't just say the question number. I talked to you about checking your email. I'll let you know by 8 a.m. if for some reason we need to go remote, and I'll just send you a Google Classrooms link. Sometimes it depends on how talkative you guys are. So if none of my classes are like participatory, I may just make a video of the lecture and post it because I don't really want to sit on the computer for 3 hours when you guys aren't talking back to me. And that's very common when you do remote stuff. In class, I can yell at you a little bit more and be like, can you please talk to me? Can you please say something? That doesn't work quite as well on the computer. So we'll just see, but there will be some kind of either a video lecture that you're supposed to watch and do the problems along with, or attending at the same time on a Google link. And in those instances, I really don't care if you show up at a different time. It's not like it's going to be that frequently, but it always seems to happen a few times during the semester. Also, they have these stupid like, oh, we have Friday off and Monday off. I'm like, why do you never have a Tuesday or a Thursday off? I'm not going to read all of that. I've already said it. This is important. Okay, there are no late points for homework. Okay, it is for the whole chapter. You can start it at the beginning. There's no reason why you should not be able to finish it by the end, unless, of course, you didn't start it early enough. Okay, so there are no late points. You need to get it in by the due date. And I'm pretty sure it's just however much you've done. So if you got 70% of the homework completed by then, you'll still get a 70%. I would advise going and finishing it the next day, but you're not gonna get those additional points, okay? Pearson has some weird quirks too about how it marks things in the grade book, and if I don't have the settings exactly right. So if you think there's a question, just email me. Oh my gosh, when the due date passes for an exam, it will all of a sudden appear as a 0 in your grade book, and your A will drop to a C-. That's not real. It's just because class started at 10 and I had it due at 10 or 9 or whatever, and I haven't put the score in yet. Or because I haven't graded it yet and input the score. So don't freak out about stuff like that. But if you think there's a legitimate thing, like I thought got 2 tries on this, like I think the homework, the pre-reading questions give you 2 attempts on each question, or maybe even 3. So if it's not working for that, you can let me know. We talked about exams. There's the dates for the final exams. Don't leave town before that if you don't live here. This is a university-wide exam schedule based on when your class is held. And all the rest of the stuff is not listed on there because it's like university policies that's consistent from one class to another. If you want to see that, go in Pearson and look at the details. Okay, and I have 10 minutes perfectly left for questions or to deal with tech stuff because I hate the amount of tech stuff we end up dealing with this first week. So you can leave. You can stay and ask questions. You can stay and have me help you make sure your Pearson stuff is set up. But please come to class on Wednesday, having Pearson set up, having your reading done. If I don't see that you're like registered by tomorrow afternoon on Pearson, I probably will send you an email and be like, what the hell? Why are you not on there? Because apparently only half of my students are so far. Okay. It's good to have you. Welcome to college. It's gonna be a blast. That one for me? Okay. So it looks like you're logged in. So go ahead and click forward. That's us. First one there. And then okay, so it's going to have you create a login. So go ahead and do that and then see if it redirects you to the right place. And then hang out here. You turn this off so the light's not in my eyes. Okay.
Could you show me again just how you got to that PDF to have the notes in it?
Yes. Yeah, that's the Pearson. And then document share. That's the notes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Hi. So the best thing to do is if you go downstairs to the second floor, that's where the IT office is. Yep, and then they can go back. Usually you just use your RMU login as the password, but I don't want to. So go ask them. Thanks. Oh, I didn't even bother to do that. Where it says Pearson e-text. I knew I was going to miss something. Open my textbook. Yeah. Wait, that's close. Okay. Yep. And then the videos should be in there, but they're also in the question itself. Thank you. Love when those come in very beginning. Hi.
So are these the one or no?
They're here. Yep.
On paper?
On paper.
I didn't know they're on paper.
No, they're on paper, so don't have to scan tomorrow.
Yeah. You're an iPad user, right?
Yes.
Is there like a good way to download the big slideshow PowerPoint?
Yes. So if you and do you have a pencil?
I do, yes, ma'am.
I didn't love my iPad nearly as much until I got the pencil, and then I was like, this is life changing. Okay. So if you go to document sharing and go to that, then what I usually do is download it to my files.
Okay.
So I have this is like one that I downloaded, and I think if you go like this and then say, did I see it in there? No. Let's see. Save to files. Okay, so you do it that way, save to files, and then you can just annotate in there. So that's always what I do.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Hi, sports. Thank you.
I have a problem. Like I can't go to the book bundle because
Okay.
like last semester I do log out, so
Okay.
I have to go to the bookstore.
You might have to go to the bookstore. So let's see. Let's close this out, and then if I do this, what happens?
Yeah, this is just.
Well, that's weird. That shouldn't be based on like.
I do.
Is this in a regular browser? This is in the app. Let's do it in the browser. So log into Blackboard just on like Safari or something, and see how that works. Did you have a question too? You're saying the same thing?
Same.
Okay. Because you didn't do the book bundle last
Yeah.
time? Yeah. And it's different this year anyway. I swear they love changing things all the time.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I just had a really quick question.
Yeah.
So, is there a difference on the GPA between like an A minus and an A?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool beans. So, what does that look like?
So I feel like I'm gonna have to Google it. You can Google it,
Okay.
but I think that an A is a 4, and then an A minus is probably like a 3.7. But then a B ends up being a 3, or a B minus rather. No, is that right? I think you should Google it. But I
totally
feel
Google
like
it.
a B might actually be a 3. So it might be like a B minus is almost like getting in the C range, but it's not as low as a full C.
Okay, got it.
Does that make sense?
So that definitely adds incentive. because,
It
like,
does. It makes a big
At
difference.
my high school, I was just like floating at like an A because I could.
Well, and then also, I mean, this is not a thing 20 years ago, but, oh my gosh, or 25 years ago. But I know that high schools also, like, rate like, you can't get more than a 4.0 here, right? Like, in
Yeah.
high schools, people will be like, oh, my kid has a such a 4.7. I'm like, what does that even mean? So,
yeah, I had
yes.
classmates complaining that their A brought their GPA down. And I'm like,
That doesn't even mean anything to me.
like why?
Grade inflation.
So like now everyone like, because I'm from Virginia, right? So the big
Uh-huh.
school that everyone wants to get into is Virginia Tech, right? And they're
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, you need.
My
to have,
nephew just started Virginia Tech
Yeah,
this
you need
week.
to have like a 4 or 5 to get into Virginia Tech now. And I'm sitting here with my 3.6 going, who the hell?
Why is that not? Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So,
yeah.
yeah.
My nephew. That's who. Sorry.
Yeah,
He's
anyway,
ridiculous.
your nephew has pushed me out of Virginia.
I'm so sorry. It's a great place too. Okay, so if you don't want to do the book bundle, you could start by just doing the trial because then you can have access to the course and everything, or you could go ahead and pay for it yourself.
Oh,
So I want to say it's like, I don't know, 70 maybe if you pay for it out of pocket, but you should at least talk to the bookstore and see like if with your other courses it
Yeah.
makes sense to do that, because usually it is cheaper.
If I do like training, I can see the.
Yeah, go ahead
syllabus.
and hit it and see. It's probably gonna have you create a, it's probably gonna have you create an account, but since we have time, just go ahead and set it up now so that I can tell if that's the case, if that's really what happens. I feel like our internet is so slow this morning because
Yeah.
everyone's probably like trying to do this kind of stuff. Okay, so then create an account. You guys, none of you are mine, right?
What Wi-Fi do you use?
The RMU Secure.
Okay. That's what I'm on. It doesn't seem to be working.
Oh, it's not even working? It's not just
I mean,
slow?
like, it looks like half the pages for some reason.
Man, you could try Guest. I doubt that that would work any better though. Or, worst case scenario, when stuff like that happens, is I hotspot it from my phone.
So is it a different chemistry teacher for each class now?
No, Chem 1, I teach, well, so like, I always teach all the freshman ones, so I teach all 3 of Chem 1 and then all 3 of Chem 2. But like, organic is somebody else. And, are you in here for my class? Or, oh, okay. I was like, I'm confused. And then I think there is